Thank you for joining me. So we're right now looking at subtropical storm Nicole. It does not look very organized, hence it's a subtropical storm. It has both tropical and extratropical characteristics. In fact, this almost looks like a winter system. There is convection in the center, but this looks very disorganized. If I didn't know any better, I would just say this is a disorganized tropical wave. But if you look at the loop, you will see a swirl. And there is some convection right here associated with the center of circulation. So it is trying to get its act together. But there's a lot of dry air that it's working its way into the system. So you have a dry slot right here, which is very typical of a non-tropical system. And yes, this system did form not from the tropics. It actually resulted from a upper level low that came out of the United States that dipped from basically a piece of the jet stream ripped off. It was a cold core low at 500 millibars, dipped down into the Bahamas, into the Greater Antilles, and a surface low formed off the Carolinas, drifted south, and stayed over the relatively warm waters and acquired tropical characteristics. Now we have Nicole. What the latest models are showing is very troubling. I'm looking at the latest model. There's already hurricane warnings in effect. There are already hurricane warnings up for the Bahamas. So let me show you what I'm talking about. All right. Right here, these are hurricane warnings. They're anticipating this system to become a hurricane before making landfall. They're expecting Nicole to acquire full tropical characteristics and become a hurricane and or be convectionally disorganized but still have hurricane force winds. Kind of like Sandy. So they're anticipating a system like Sandy with a wide wind field with hybrid characteristics with hurricane force winds to come ashore around West Palm Beach up to like Flagler Beach. So this is going to be a very, very dangerous situation. Not only will tropical storm force winds will probably be going as far north as Georgia, even parts of South Carolina, when it's going to be making landfall in central South Florida. There's already hurricane watches in effect from basically Fort Lauderdale, from the Broward-Dade County line, all the way up to just north of Daytona Beach, or just around the Daytona Beach area. And the track that has it go up the East Coast, basically up to New England and Maine. So this is going to be a coast-to-coast event, like the entire East Coast will be impacted by this storm. And the latest models, look, this is the 18Z run of the GFS. Major flooding for New York. I mean, this is going to be, if this transpires, we can be having an effect like what Ida had in New York, especially if this system passes over or even to the west of New York City, because the latest guidance is now going further west. So, oh man, this is going to be bad. Because we're going to have to be driving through this mess, because we're going to be leaving Oswego, so we're going to have to driving through this torrential rain. I just hope we don't get caught in it. Wow. And the worst of the weather will come in early Saturday morning, and it looks like it'll be over by like about 8 a.m. Friday, or 7 a.m. Saturday will probably just be ending. And looking at the rainfall for New York City, it doesn't look too bad now with this run, about 2 inches. I mean, this is more of a best case scenario, but it's still not good. I mean, I'm looking at the NAM right now. This is showing a potential hurricane coming in, low-end hurricane, Category 1 hurricane, coming in right into, this is showing about the Flagler Beach area. Category 1 hurricane coming in. So I'm going to be looking at NAM Nest, which is the high-resolution NAM. See, it doesn't look organized. Very disorganized system. See, only 976 millibars according to the NAM3KM. But the NAM3KM frequently overdoes the strength usually, so probably going to be in the mid to high 980s. But you're going to have a very wide wind field with this because this is going to have pressure gradient as well. So you're going to have tropical storm force winds from the Carolinas southward. So this is going to be a very wide wind field event. It's not just going to be concentrated around the center of circulation. This is going to be a very wide storm. Not as wide as Sandy, but still very wide. I'm even going to the mid-Atlantic. I mean, look how wide the winds are going to be. We will even be having north winds at 25 miles an hour, gusts around 20, because this storm is going to be so wide. So even Wednesday, it's going to be a gusty day in New York because of the system. You're going to be having winds in the Carolinas, even in Virginia, 26 knots. So you're going to have a very wide wind field. This is because of the pressure gradient. You're having a very strong high pressure system basically over the northeast. This is what is guiding the storm west. So this very tight pressure gradient will create gusty winds in New York. And tropical storm force winds, even in the Carolinas, off of North Carolina, even southern Virginia, will have near tropical storm force winds. So like off Hatteras, you're going to have tropical storm force winds. These are tropical storm force. You're going to have a very wide wind field. And you won't have a lot of precip here. It's going to be a lot of wind, though. And you're going to have these gusty convective showers coming through. So it's going to be a very impressive system. So let's go back to spaghetti models. See, tropical storm warnings are even off the Carolinas because of how wide this wind field is going to be. There is even a hurricane watch in effect. Look at this, tropical storm warnings, hurricane watches, hurricane warnings for the Bahamas. Look how far north tropical storm warnings are going because this system is going to be so wide. It's so wide that they're issuing tropical storm warnings even up to Charleston, South Carolina, even though landfall will be here. So a very wide wind field with Nicole, very wide. Is the storm going to Boca Raton, Florida? Yes, it is. Yes, it is going to Boca Raton. Absolutely. This storm is going to impact all of Florida, especially north of the point of impact. This storm is going to be very, very wide. It's going to have a very wide wind field with this system. The impacts for Boca Raton will be heavy rain, strong winds, and coastal flooding. I mean, along the coast. Like, if you're right along the coast, you're going to have coastal flooding, especially if you're north of the point of impact, because you'll have a continuous easterly fetch. I'm not talking about a big storm surge like with a hurricane, but more of a continuous onshore flow. So there'll be a lot of beach erosion, coastal flooding. Some roads could potentially be impassable, and I would recommend that people right along the coast, especially in very low-lying areas, evacuate. I'm not just saying for Florida, but most of the East Coast, there's probably coastal flood warnings in effect for the East Coast of Florida. I'm actually going to go to Flagler Beach. Oh, great. Sorry. There we go, Flagler Beach. There's many advisories. Storm surge warning is it even in effect? Yes. If you're in Flagler Beach, PSL Florida here. All right. What time? Well, the impacts will begin tonight. Like, you're already going to start having winds and some gusty showers now, but the storm will not arrive until, I believe, Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday. That's when the storm will arrive. Based on the models, I'll show you when the storm is going to arrive. So Boca Raton is in Broward County. It's just north of Miami. So go to the southeast. There we go. So landfall, the worst of the storm for Boca Raton, based on this model, looks to be basically Wednesday night into Thursday morning, Wednesday afternoon. So like this is late Wednesday afternoon. So this is basically like 7 p.m. Wednesday. Strong winds, heavy rain. Let's look at wind gusts. So Boca Raton is in this area here, just south of Fort Lauderdale. Winds will probably be as high as 50 miles an hour. Wow, look at those winds on the backside. 50, 60 mile an hour winds. So it's going to be probably midnight Thursday when the worst of the impacts will occur. Port St. Lucie, which is further north. Port St. Lucie. Let me see where Port St. Lucie is. So Port St. Lucie, Florida. You're going to be very close to the point of landfall. Impacts there will be very significant. Gusts up to 80 miles an hour, very heavy rain. If you're going to be here, if you're going to be on Fort Walton, if you're going to be at Walton Rocks Beach, I would leave. Hutchinson Island, leave. There's a chance that the entire island could be underwater by at least about 5 to 10 feet because of combined. Right now we're having a new moon tonight. We're having a lunar eclipse tonight. So astronomically, the tides are going to be high. So if this storm hits during high tide, which is pretty likely because this is going to be a continuous storm, it's going to hit during multiple high tide cycles, I would leave. School on Wednesday? Very unlikely. Tommy, I think school is going to be closed. And if they don't close the schools, I would recommend staying home. Because you're going to be in West Palm. You're going to be at the point of impact. You're going to be like right here. You're going to be very close. Like Miami is probably going to be fine, but if the further north you go, it's going to be worse. Even though the point of impact will be around West Palm Beach to Vero Beach, this is where the worst impacts will be between West Palm and Fort Pierce. That's where the impact, this is where the center of circulation will pass. But keep in mind, the wind field will be very wide, especially going northward, because you're going to have a very strong high pressure system. You've got a very tight pressure gradient. You're going to have tropical storm force winds going even into the North Carolina region. So all of this area will have tropical storm force winds. This is going to be kind of like Sandy in terms of the wide impacts of the wind field. So major flooding for eastern Florida. I'm very concerned about the immediate coastline. Even areas near the inlet can have flooding because this area right here, Herman's Day Beach. I wouldn't be surprised if this barrier island is partially cut in two. You're going to have multiple days of tropical storm to hurricane force winds, and this could just cut the barrier island into, especially right here. A Normandy Beach, South Ocean Drive. If any structures are there, they're going to be destroyed. Like, this is unsalvageable. This is going to be a really bad storm. Even though the fact that this is a hybrid storm is worse than a compact Category 4 storm. Ian was a category high-end Cat 4, almost a 5, but it was much wider than Charlie, and the devastation was far worse than Charlie. It's all to do with size, wind field, and duration of impact. So, looking at the models right now, I can say this. Be prepared for multiple days of power outages. Heavy rain, especially north of the point of impact. So this is how much rain will fall according to the GFS. Heaviest rain will be North Florida from West Palm Beach northward. So this is what the NAM is showing, the regular NAM. Looks like the worst impact will be Titusville, Daytona Beach. I mean, if you're in Miami, you should escape the worst of it because you will have a mostly onshore. I mean, not onshore. You'll have mostly a north wind. Right now, you're having a northeast wind, but as the system passes by to your north, you'll start having very strong offshore winds, which will keep the flooding down in Miami. But there will be some wind damage, especially in northern Miami. This is a swath of hurricane force winds coming in, but this is a loft. This is 925 millibars, which is around 2,000 feet. Coming into, so according to this run, the strongest winds, the onshore winds, the worst of the effects will be just south of Titusville. So basically, Melbourne, Florida will be hit pretty hard. Vero Beach, Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie. Port St. Lucie, if the storm goes to your north, you won't have flooding. But if the storm ends up going further south, or it instead of going northwest, it comes in more from the west northwest, that will make the worst of the impacts further south. So the worst impacted areas will be from Titusville, between Titusville, Cocoa Beach, Marion Island, down towards about Fort Pierce. This is where I think the worst of the impacts will be. But even Port St. Lucie will have a duration of significant impacts. 60 to 80 mile an hour gusts from the northeast and east northeast, shifting to north and then going northwest and diminishing. But the worst impacts will likely be Palm Bay and Melbourne. This is where I think the worst impacts will be. I'm very concerned about Melbourne, Florida. Melbourne, Florida, and the Barrier Islands. I'm more concerned about the Barrier Islands because they're facing the ocean directly. But you see where you're having these really narrow bands of land, where the Barrier Island is very narrow. There is a chance that the ocean could overrun those areas and start going into the intercoastal waterways, and that could create some flooding, especially with an easterly fetch that can possibly inundate some low-lying areas like Rockledge, Avenue Vieira, some. So all of these areas, like right along the immediate coast, could face some pretty significant coastal flooding. Storm surge of maybe 5 to 10 feet, is my thinking. Will the system rapidly intensify? No. It won't do explosive development. This is not a fully tropical system. This is a hybrid system. That is actually worse than a compact major hurricane. Keep in mind, Sandy was a Category 1 storm when it impacted the Northeast, and it was the second costliest hurricane on record after Katrina until Harvey happened, until Harvey and Ida. Rapid intensification is not likely. But the impacts will nevertheless be comparable to a Category 2 or 3 storm because of how wide the wind field will be. So this will be comparable to a major hurricane, despite the winds being only that of a strong tropical storm, low end Cat 1. Don't treat this as a Category 1 hurricane, guys. Treat this as you would a 3 or a 4 because of the astronomical tide, the continuous fetch from the east. Treat this as you would Sandy. Had we known Sandy would have been as bad as it was, had people known, almost everyone would have evacuated the coastal areas. But they're like, oh, it's only a 1. It's not going to be tropical. It doesn't matter whether a system is tropical or not, or hybrid. All that matters is how strong the winds are going to be, how wide the wind field is going to be. That is what determines impact. Keep in mind the perfect storm in 1991, Hurricane Grace, merged with a nor'easter, and it formed another storm that was unnamed, a tropical hurricane formed. The wind field was wide. Many coastal areas were severely flooded. Think about the 1978 New England hurricane. Many homes were washed away in Situate, Mass. Surge was comparable of a Category 2 hurricane, even in a low end 3. Hold on, just got to call someone. This storm is not going to be good. Like, even in the New York City area, we could get significant coastal flooding. From rainfall, sorry. I can't stream for too long, guys, because I have to get up at 4 in the morning. So in 4.5 hours, I have to get up. I'm live. I'm live right now. Oh, because I'm live. I got people watching my stream.
I made a TikTok video of me like talking to people of
About Nicole?
about Nicole. And you want to know how many views it got? Oh crap, wrong account.
About 100
Uh,
million? Not a million.
wish. Wait, that's not
100,000?
even possible. The Florida population ain't even that high.
Florida population is 20 million, and it's
Well,
rising.
most of them would have probably got is 20 million.
The two
But
the two fastest growing states are Texas and Florida.
93,000.
Yeah, that's really good. Unfortunately, I can't stream on TikTok. I don't have enough followers.
Dang, that was a horrible sneeze.
Bless you, Johnny. So hurricane, subtropical storm, Nicole is going
Oh
to.
yeah, I can watch your live one. You got 5 people watching. Oh
I
my
know I
gosh,
do.
how about that?
Nicole is going to become a hurricane, Johnny, but it won't look like a hurricane. It will look like a major coastal storm. It's going to have hurricane strength, but it won't look organized. It'll be very disorganized on satellite. But it's going to be like Sandy, Johnny. It's going to be like Hurricane Sandy. Disorganized, but very powerful.
So wait, Sandy wasn't disorganized.
After it left the Caribbean, it looked like a giant nor'easter. It
Are you
didn't have
sure
it
it
didn't have
was?
that really intense. It didn't look like a hurricane. If you looked on satellite, it looked like a coastal storm.
No.
This system is going to do the same thing. It's basically going
Um,
to be a subtropical hurricane.
I'm kind of worried about my best friend. She lives in Long Hammock.
Long hammock?
Correct?
No, she'll be fine. Her only impact will be very heavy rain and strong winds. She's not going to have ocean flooding to worry about. I'm really worried about people who live on the East Coast. I have family in Vero Beach.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm really worried about them. I have family in Vero Beach. I have family in Jacksonville, but they don't live near the water, thankfully.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, think about the impacts of how big it's going to be.
This is going to be like Sandy. They're issuing tropical storm warnings up to the North Carolina waters just off North Carolina. Tropical storm force winds are going to be huge. They're going to be like over 500 miles wide, Johnny. This is going to be a really big wide system. And I don't mean the diameter. I mean the radius. The diameter of tropical storm force winds from like the full diameter could be close to 1,000 miles. This is going to be a very wide storm, Johnny. This is going to be possibly historic storm for Florida. This could be one of the widest storms
Very
ever.
big, very big storm, you say?
Yeah.
Is it gonna be big?
Come on, John.
Really big?
Yes, very
Oh,
big.
and Andy, I'm gonna tell you this right now. You're probably looking at the forecast cone, and you are not noticing what I'm noticing.
Oh, you mean
You're in it.
I
You're
know,
in
Johnny.
it.
Johnny, I know. I'm in it. But right now I'm focusing more so on Florida. That's where I'm really concerned because by the time it's going to reach New York, it's going to be.
Andy, I need to tell you something right now. Now, tell me. Look at the Bahamas right
Hurricane
now.
warning.
Look at the Bahamas. Do you notice anything weird? Don't
Yes.
mention the hurricane warning. I mean, yeah, mention the hurricane warning. But do you notice something weird about the path, about the hurricane warning?
Even areas to the south are under hurricane warning.
Don't you think it's a little bit off? You want to know
No,
why?
I don't think it's off.
I'll put it this way: if the hurricane warning, if the H sign was 5 Bahamas, yeah, hurricane warning makes sense. But why is there a hurricane warning when there's going to be a tropical storm? That makes absolutely no
Because
sense.
Johnny,
Hurricane
it's
force
going to be
winds, yes.
intensifying. It's going to be intensifying. Some of the models are saying it could be a hurricane by that time.
Dang, that's crazy. Now, did you okay? Did you see my message I sent you?
No. Oh,
Uh,
shoot, I'm not looking at it.
messages. Now, this is what I told you. I, I said people don't understand how serious a Category 1 hurricane can be. Can you go to the comments on my TikTok video and please tell them to be prepared for a category higher and actually encourage them to be prepared? Because people are saying, oh, it's not going to be much. I'm like, wait and see.
Yeah, it's going to be like Sandy. gonna be like Sandy. You want me to go on your TikTok and tell them?
Click the link I sent you
All
and
right,
just
Johnny.
reply to the comments. Tell them that to be just do some encouragement of them to be ready. Now, how big do you think the wind field is going to be?
Well, from the point of impact, from the center of circulation going north, about 500-600 miles of tropical storm force winds.
How is that possible?
Because there's a high pressure system north, a very strong high, very strong low pressure gradient.
Now, Andy, I got a question for you. So,
winds. Okay, so what happens is,
Andy,
Johnny, hold on. You asked me. Let me. Can I answer the question?
Okay.
So because you have a high pressure to your north, winds, air wants to go from the higher pressure to the low pressure to equalize each other, right? Because they want to reach equilibrium. And so, because so much air is going from the high pressure to the low pressure, but it can't go directly into the low because of a Coriolis. So, long story short, pressure gradient builds up, you get a funneling of the winds, and so it's going to be really strong. The tighter the gradient, the stronger the winds. Basically, the greater the difference between the high and the low pressure, the stronger the winds.
Okay. Now, Andy.
Yes.
I want you to look at the picture. Okay, look at the two pictures. Look at the two pictures I sent you now.
Southwest.
I want you to determine what you think could happen. There could be many solutions. Mm-hmm. Either A, just a very cold rain event.
No.
B, maybe some sleet.
What?
Maybe some freezing rain.
For who?
C, a snowstorm.
For who?
Me, with this below average.
No, Johnny. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen in a couple weeks. I've been looking, Johnny. I need to focus on this right now.
Yeah. It says between the 15th and the 21st. That's why I asked. And then, the next thing you know, between the 15th and the 21st, there's going to be well below average temperatures. That kind of makes me about that. Now, Andy, I was thinking about doing a live stream, on my TikTok of me covering, giving them weather forecasts and all that stuff. But should I do it the day prior or the day of the storm? What's your thoughts?
Yes, I think you should.
Day prior or the day before the hurricane?
Okay, let me look at your link again. I clicked it, but I.
What did you do?
No, I'm trying to go to your link. The link you gave me.
Click it. All you gotta do is just click it. Go click.
Damn. Damn, that's a really. Johnny, it's very blurry. The picture
Why
sent.
Blurry?
Maybe because.
What do I do?
234. Okay, I went down to subscribe.
I'll just say I do have to be up at 6:00 a.m. tomorrow morning. Oh my gosh.
Okay, Johnny, can you send me the link because it's just giving me TikTok. It's not giving me your link.
Okay. I don't know why it's not giving you the link. You should be able to click on it. You got TikTok.
Yes, I clicked on the link you gave me. Oh, Johnny memes.
No, wrong account.
It gave me John memes.
John, what? That's because that's the account I'm sending you the video from.
Yeah, but it's not giving me the video.
No, just search up John West.
Oh!
Just search up John West.
Hold on, people are calling me knowing I'm supposed to get up at 4 in the morning. Hold on, I'll call you back in a second.
Okay.
Hey guys, I need to get up at 4 in the morning. I'm going to bed. I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, did you take your meds?
Yes, I did. Thanks for reminding me. Love you guys. Good night.
Arthur?
Yes? Yes, Rain?
Okay. Well, we just wanted to say hi.
Hi. Sorry. Thank you for calling me.
We wanted to check on you before you went to sleep.
Thank
I told you that we hooked you up with Arc.
you. Thank you. Okay. Great. Yeah, guys, I'm about to go. I need to go to bed in like a little bit because I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning.
I am very sorry if I missed your call.
Okay. Okay, Johnny, I'm back, but I really need to go to bed in like a few moments. Why is it giving me that thing again? Ugh.
I hope you know that you waste your call on your stream.
Yes, Johnny, I know. It's okay.
About somebody said, did you take your meds? I'm like, what?
I forgot to mute the microphone.
Yeah.
Johnny, it's not giving me your live stream. Oh, there it is.
You got it?
Finally.
I'm not live right now. I'm saying I'm live.
No, I know.
Look at the comments. They're like, oh, it's not gonna be that bad. I'm like, just wait. Just wait. Only a one. You have nothing to worry about. 87-mile-per-hour winds. Oh my god. Somebody says, got my beer ready. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, look at all these activities.
And
I feel like
hold on, Johnny.
oh my god. So, are you gonna be streaming the hurricane when it makes landfall?
Yes. There. I let them know.
You let them know to be precautious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Johnny. I'm gonna be going live on. I'm gonna be doing a video on TikTok while I'm also doing the not live, but I'm gonna be recording this. Okay, Johnny. I'll call you back in a few minutes. All right?
Okay, you know you're still live, right?
Yes, I'm still live.
Oh, okay.
Thanks. Bye. Guys, Nicole is going to be a Category 1 hurricane when it impacts eastern Florida. But don't let that fool you saying, oh, it's going to be only a 1. There's going to be a very wide wind field. There's going to be significant coastal flooding and storm surges north of the point of impact. You know, areas north of West Palm Beach going up to Melbourne, there's going to be significant flooding. There might even be surges as high as 10 to 15 feet, which is that of a major hurricane, but this is because of the continuous fetch from the east. You're going to have a lot of flooding here. While the storm surge may not reach 15 feet, widespread areas of 5 to 10 feet of flooding is likely along the immediate coast. Melbourne and the Barrier Islands along the immediate coast are in significant impacts. Areas like Normandy Beach, Dune Walk by the Ocean, all these areas will likely have significant coastal flooding. A lot of these homes here along the beach will be washed away. There's going to be a lot of property damage. Many homes will be washed away. A lot of these homes you see here will not be here or will have significant damage after Hurricane Nicole passes by. And this will not be uh, like a compact major hurricane. This will be more like Sandy, which is going to be a disorganized hurricane. It wouldn't look. It's not going to look like a hurricane. It's going to look more like a coastal storm, but the impacts will be comparable to a major hurricane because of the wind field and how strong the winds are going to be. Please evacuate if you live within several miles of the beach. Please. This is going to be a catastrophic storm for the immediate coast. All right. Mm-mm. Okay. I'm trying to be more accurate. I don't want, people to evacuate only for them not to like needlessly evacuate. Between Juno Beach, between Jupiter Inlet, between north of West Palm Beach, north, north of West Palm Beach, and mm, and Melbourne. Worst impacts will be along the coastal waters between Vero Beach and Port St. Lucie in Melbourne. MLWX. Post. Okay, so I just uploaded the video to TikTok, so now I'm going to continue talking about Hurricane Nicole up to around like another 10-20 minutes because I have to get up in 4.5 hours. So I'm going to be working all day tomorrow. I'm going to be home around 9 tomorrow, and then I will be streaming most of Wednesday. I'll be going to bed impact landfall will be Wednesday. The area I'm most concerned about is between Port St. Lucie and Melbourne. This is where the worst of the impact will be. So Sebastian, Vero Beach will have significant flooding. North Hutchinson Island, very significant impacts. So let me go back and look at the comments. Alrighty, guys. Yeah, Port St. Lucie, Florida. Yeah. Audrey, are you along the coast? Like, where in Vero Beach are you exactly? Like, not the street, but like, how far are you from the water? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna comment on the video itself. Um, um, you should be fine. So Audrey, you should be fine since you're pretty far from the ocean. My concern is, palm trees. There's going to be a long duration, significant wind event of 60 to 70 miles an hour. But you probably went through many hurricanes. Are you near any creeks or streams that I should know about? Because there's going to be a significant rainfall event as well of 5 to 10 inches. It's going to be a lot of rain, guys. Like, this is going to be a significant rainfall event for areas north of West Palm Beach. There's going to be a lot of rain from this. So if you're not going to be dealing with ocean flooding, this will have significant amounts of rain. Not like 10 or 20 inches, but rainfall amounts will likely be very significant. There's going to be a significant amount of rain with the system, especially where you're going to have convergence. Areas of converging winds can sometimes cause more lift, and that can create heavier rainfall, especially around the point of landfall. See where the winds are coming in from the southeast here and then coming in from the northeast here? This is a point of convergence, and that'll create some very heavy rainfall rates, especially on the northern part of the eye wall, which is probably where Port St. Lucie is going to be. And significant flooding is likely. Like, are you talking about a few miles or a few hundred yards? Because that can make all the difference between, a few feet of water from rainfall, nothing to do with the river, to maybe, 10 feet of water at your doorstep. Or if you have sandbags, that will be good. I mean, it all depends on how close you are to the river. I would still try to, like, okay. Is your area prone to flooding? I would recommend that you go to so I'm going to the flood zone map so everyone could like see. So okay, let me look at that. I'm surprised they're not showing any flood zones. I'm just gonna type in a random address here. Port St. Lucie. I'm just gonna put in a random address. All right. This must be the Port St. Lucie River, or is that a canal? There's a lot of I mean, there's a lot of bodies of water in here. So it's not just a river. You also have to worry about these little canals, creeks. Some of these can become raging rivers during flooding events, so maybe there's only gonna be like 5-10 inches of rain. It might not be that bad. All right. I'm just gonna type in a random address. Let's go far from any body of water. Southwest Colorado Avenue, 1986. Let's go 1980 Southwest Capandra Drive. Okay, 1980. City section 24. It's not giving me a flood map. Search. Alright. Just gonna search. They're not giving me a flood zone map. City section 24. This thing is impossible to use. How would I know what... How the heck am I supposed to know what flood zone anything is when they're not showing anything? This site is impossible. Okay. Yeah, because they're not showing me the flood zone map, like where the highest risk is, because this is what they're supposed to be doing. Unbelievable, but they're not. Then why is it not working? Maybe it's something I'm doing wrong. Area I'm most worried about is probably along the river, like Stewart, coastal areas here. This is where I'm most concerned about, is right along the coast and along the rivers because of flooding. But most significant flooding will probably be along the coast. Here, any homes right along the beach will likely be either suffer significant structural damage or might even be washed away. Or if there's any home on stilts, they might be fine. So a lot of damage is likely here. Some homes may have some inundation into their basements, but they're not giving me a flood zone. This is bad. They're not showing me anything here. The site is useless. Um, Zone F. Zone A. Yeah, so all of this, all these areas need to evacuate, like Zone A, like here, right along the rivers. This is because of storm surge and rain flooding. No zone. Evacuation. Mm-hmm. Are you near any creeks or streams? Oh, sorry, I was looking at the. Hurricane Ian didn't produce tornadoes, but not a lot. Um, just to be safe, I would go to a public evacuation shelter. Just to be safe, I would. I would definitely go to a shelter just to be safe, because you never know. Especially with so many creeks and streams in the Port St. Lucie area, especially canals, those could become overrun if enough rain falls, especially combined with storm surge. Or if you're not near any creeks and streams, what if you lose power? It's better to play it safe. Have you ever evacuated to a shelter before? I mean, this is not a Category 5 hurricane. We're not talking about a powerful hurricane, but the impacts will be very wide. And because of a continuous fetch of winds off the water combined with heavy amounts of rain, there could be significant amounts of flooding from both freshwater and also ocean flooding right along the coast. So Port St. Lucie is right around here. This is about where Port St. Lucie is. I mean, if the storm ends up going north, like say the storm last minute goes further north, that's kind of a saving grace for Port St. Lucie, because this is where Titusville is. This is, where the Cape Canaveral launch facility is. Port St. Lucie is basically here. So this would put Port St. Lucie right around here. That would put Port St. Lucie possibly, according to this run of the NAM, hopefully we'll get offshore wind. I mean, offshore winds or winds from the north. That's the best case scenario. But the 3 kilometer NAM kind of has Port St. Lucie here. This is where Port St. Lucie is. That would put Port St. Lucie at a very high risk of rainfall flooding. I mean, I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but but generally there's going to be between like 5 and 7 inches of rain. In your wind threat, depends on how far north or south it goes. So the most likely place to get the worst impacts, based on this run of the NAM, is Vero Beach to Melbourne. Melbourne is probably going to be worse impacted. Absolutely, Melbourne will have worse impacts. So Vero Beach, I mean Port St. Lucie, as of now, is kind of like on a hair's edge. If the storm goes north of Port St. Lucie, that's good. You want the storm to go to the north. If it ends up going further to the south, that would mean the worst impacts are going to be right over Port St. Lucie. West Palm Beach is in the clear now. Like, I'm not too concerned about West Palm Beach now. This is where West Palm is, right about there. I mean, if the eye passes right over Port St. Lucie, that means we'll probably be mostly northeast and north winds and shifting offshore. But if you're going to be north of the eye, you're going to be here, that's worse. because this is where Melbourne is. Melbourne is going to be in that core of strong winds and heavy rain. This is where Melbourne is going to be. We'll be getting a continuous offshore fetch for numerous hours. So this is going to be, continuous onshore winds, with multiple tide cycles. So the worst area now is going to be between Vero Beach and basically Melbourne. So this is about going to be the worst area, like Palm Bay. Melbourne Beach will have devastating impacts. Maybe 5 to 10 feet of storm surge. On top of waves, so this is going to be very significant. Yeah. So as of now, Port St. Lucie is kind of on a line. Like it can go either way. Like Audrey, so you right now, I would make plans to evacuate in case it ends up going further south. But if it ends up going further north, the worst impacts will be to your north. Like it's not going to be a Category 5 storm. It's not going to be like trees are going to blow down, homes will be ripped from their foundations from winds, nothing like that. But there will be significant coastal flooding. All right. All right. There we go. That's basically showing the eye of circulation. Shoot, I gotta go to bed in like 10 minutes. Because I gotta get up at 4 in the morning. And I have to be at work for 16 hours from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Okay, let's look at the the GFS. Yep, typical La Nina pattern. Definitely could be several good snowstorms in New York this winter. You gotta be kidding me. But of course, that's gonna be well in advance. Look at that. Yeah, but that's probably not gonna happen. But you never know. Let's look at the North Atlantic Oscillation. Well, looks like it's going to remain positive. The PNA is going to remain negative. It's going to briefly go positive and then go back negative. That's kind of why we're actually, but the Arctic Oscillation could go either positive or then go negative. I mean, negative AO, that's going to be a big impact for snow. That's going to be a lot of cold. But the NAO is going to remain positive, which is not very typical of a La Nina. La Nina is usually a favor blocking patterns. During a La Nina pattern, you typically do have blocking from Greenland. Typically, not always, but you do. But now let's go back on. Let's look at sea surface temperature anomalies. Yeah, normally with how warm the waters are here, you would favor blocking, but it's starting to ebb away. You're starting to get some cooler waters building in, like some patches of normal waters. There's some cooler waters here, but a big patch of warm water here, and it's starting to get cold here. So this winter can go either way, but a very snowy winter now is looking less likely because it's getting cooler here. But the Midwest will have a very cold, snowy winter. Believe it or not, it's actually because of this. And so the La Nina will mean a cold, snowy winter for like the Midwest, warmer for the East Coast, drier for the South, typically. But anything can change because right now the Northern Pacific is mostly very warm right now. And the tropics are getting colder while the Arctic's getting warmer. So that's going to mean a lower temperature gradient. Normally, if the Arctic is colder and the tropics warmer, you'll have a very tight gradient, so you'll have a very zonal jet stream, very, going east to west, which is more typical. But now, as the Arctic's warming and the tropics are cooling down because of La Nina, the the temperature differential that's already, getting smaller, it's getting even smaller. So you will have less of a temperature gradient, which will mean the jet stream, instead of being more like this, will be more like this. You'll have a very unstable jet stream. It will be buckling, there will be ridging and troughing. It's going to be a lot of blocking patterns. So if any blocking pattern develops, you could get either a persistent ridge on the west coast with a trough on the east, or persistent troughiness here with ridging on the east coast. We've kind of been having more troughiness here lately, which is good news for the west coast because they really need the rain. Like right now, there's more troughiness on the west coast, bringing in much, much needed rain. But that's not going to last long. As you see, there's a ridge building in here, and troughiness in the Midwest, which is more typical of La Nina. But hopefully, more rain and snow for the Southwest will mean Lake Mead is going to be doing better. Let's look at their water levels. Looks like it's still 1,045, so it's not going down. I mean, it's not going up. In fact, it's actually gone down quite a bit, which is bad. See, we're starting to go back down, which is not good. All right, any more questions? Yep. Thank you for watching, everyone. Good night.